Hi, everyone. I'm Elaine Quijano. It is good to be with you. Thanks for joining us. President Biden is projecting optimism, even though it remains uncertain whether Democrats can deliver a framework for his ambitious social and climate spending plan. He spoke at a 10th anniversary commemoration of the Martin Luther King Memorial in Washington, D.C. this morning. He framed the plans as a way to carry out the civil rights leaders' goals for economic equality.
For the first time in a couple generations, we're going to be investing in working families, putting them first and helping them get ahead, rather than the wealthy and the biggest and most powerful people out there.
But the plan's future looks tenuous. A number of outlets are reporting Arizona Democratic Senator Kyrsten Sinema is opposed to tax increases needed to fund programs in the bill. The plan was designed to be fully paid for. That's virtually impossible without raising taxes. The White House has aggressively courted the support of Sinema and West Virginia's Joe Manchin. Democrats need both their votes for a Senate majority. Despite Sinema's opposition to tax increases, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi insists the bill can be paid for.
This legislation will be paid for. In fact, it may be more than paid for. Again, it's transformative, it's historic, it's life-changing, and it will pass soon.
A number of Democrats are expressing frustration with the Arizona senator's resistance to the plan, while Republicans remain united.
And it will set our country back for decades. We cannot afford this, not ever, and especially not now. Americans are finding life today much harder than they did just a short year ago.
Meanwhile, the House voted Thursday to hold Steve Bannon in criminal contempt. The former senior Trump advisor refused to comply with subpoenas related to the January 6th Capitol attack. The investigation into the insurrection remains a divisive issue among lawmakers. One of the few Republicans on the House Capitol Riot Committee, Wyoming's Liz Cheney, criticized her party for their resistance.
There are people in this chamber right now who were evacuated with me and with the rest of us on that day during that attack. People who now seem to have forgotten the danger of the moment, the assault on the Constitution, the assault on our Congress. People who you will hear argue that there is simply no legislative purpose for this committee, for this investigation, or for this subpoena.
I want to bring in Margaret Brennan. She is the moderator of Face the Nation and CBS News Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent. Welcome, Margaret. Good to see you again. So what information is the House Select Committee hoping to ultimately get from Steve Bannon, and how do contempt charges potentially change the situation?
Well, look, Steve Bannon, who was a White House advisor and a campaign advisor to President Trump, is someone who embraces controversy, who likes being in this sort of David versus Goliath moment. That has been really his identity. So for him, he may not be dissuaded from his position because he essentially holds Congress in his own contempt. The recommendation to the Department of Justice that they actually seek legal measures against him, though, could come with something as potentially big as a $100,000 fine, a year in prison, but the Department of Justice would have to decide to prosecute. This vote today was a referral to them to do so on behalf of Congress, saying that he was, violating the parameters of what they were pursuing here, which was just simply to ask him questions, and that he was, holding in contempt of Congress. The vote was a unanimous one in the committee, but when it went to the floor, it was just 9 Republicans who joined Democrats to say that this needs to be pursued in principle. As for the specifics of what they are seeking, Congresswoman Cheney released audio of Steve Bannon's audio podcast on January the 5th, in which he used language that seems very specific, calling for maniacal focus, calling for people listening to him. I mean, I'm just looking at the language here. All hell will break loose tomorrow. This is a point of attack that we have always wanted. Language that sounds like there's an intent behind it for what would come the following day, January the 6th. And so it's that specific role of intent and any kind of planning from turning this from a rally into a siege of the Capitol, versus how it's often sort of washed away or described by some who say this was just sort of a riot, something that erupted in the moment.
Right. During that vote by the committee to recommend charges to the House, Representative Cheney had some pretty forceful words, and she suggested that Steve Bannon had what she called advanced knowledge of what would take place on January 6th.
Exactly.
Well, we know that January 6th has become a lightning rod in Congress. No matter where this investigation leads, Margaret, how have the events of that day defined what has happened in Congress since then?
How it's defined, I mean, it's something that really, Elaine, it's interesting because it becomes this sort of Rorschach test for how you not only interpret the events of that day, how seriously you take them. Do you wash them away as it was a moment of sort of, exuberance and something that was just a riot that erupted, versus an intent and an insurrection, something that involved essentially domestic terrorism type planning? How do you view that often describes what side of the aisle you sit on. And the farther away we get from the date on the calendar of January the 6th, it seems there are more and more Republicans who are just very eager to turn the page to say, let it rest, let's move on. Department of Justice will pursue charges against some of those who already are either in custody and were photographed, for example, in the Capitol that day. But as to those who might have inspired or planned for those individuals to be there, who guided and directed them, that's where the committee is right now. And this is getting into uncomfortable territory, as we see. A number of allies of President Trump have said this is all just a witch hunt, and that is why Steve Bannon is being pursued, because he has come to encapsulate so much of the Trump identity. So that's how it's being spun politically. But it is really, I think, for many who work on Capitol Hill, deeply troubling for any of this to be washed away as something to just quickly get over, when we have not seen violence like that inside the United States Capitol before.
Really, truly unprecedented. I also want to ask you about legislation and negotiations on Capitol Hill. Democrats still have not agreed on the framework for a spending bill, and it appears they're going to miss that self-imposed end-of-week deadline. Now, Senators Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin are the two figures looming large for the president's agenda. How democratic, Margaret, can this bill be when these two lawmakers in particular, at odds with, what a lot of people in their party want, are likely going to dictate its outcome?
This is what makes a market, right? The marketplace of ideas. But within the Democratic Party, it's really a problem for them because of the path that they chose here to pursue, how to turn this huge bill full of all sorts of different social programs and to put it into place through this mechanism. I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of this spending provision and the way they're pursuing it using something known as the Byrd Rule, right? It puts very specific parameters on the type of spending that is allowed into a bill like this when they pass it through something called reconciliation. And it allows for them to solely do this along party lines. That's why it is a fight between Democrats right now. This was the pathway they pursued, thinking that it was easier to get those two Democrats on board than it was to persuade perhaps 10 Republicans to cross over or more potentially on the big social spending package, on the infrastructure package, which is supposed to be moving alongside this, according to the initial Democratic strategy. That did have bipartisan and still does have bipartisan support. So because Democrats wanted to get some of these packages through quickly, arguing that it was on behalf of the president of economic necessity in this particular moment, and a moment of opportunity, as Democrats say, because they have the governing majority in both houses and the White House, they chose to muscle it through this way. And that's why time and again we keep coming back to that comparison of what happened with President Obama when he, along party lines, muscled through that landmark ACA, the Obamacare, the health care overhaul and program that he viewed as his real legacy item on the domestic front. And so politically, there's the question of, do you end up getting the political benefit and the credit for something when you pass it through this way that can often be messy and really highlight the divide and the divisions within the Democratic Party itself, instead of all the social programs that are in there that are quite popular? If people don't know what's in it, they may not give the president credit for it.
Right, and we've heard from activist groups. They're certainly not happy with what they are hearing about potentially having some of those agenda items not be included, like climate,
right,
in the way that they had hoped. Margaret Brennan, Margaret, always great to talk to you. Thank you very much.
So good to talk to you, Elaine.